All right. Well, Shafonne, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. I'm excited to have you here.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's always a joy and so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So why don't you just share a little bit about you, how you got to this place of sharing and loving on women and all of that?
Sure. Well, I actually started out in the wedding industry. So I was a wedding planner, and then I started a wedding blog, the only one in the world for plus size brides. And so I was there, and I've had that for 10 years. And I realized that we as plus size women, specifically plus size brides, when I was there, deal with a lot of not loving ourselves, not loving how we look. And it's something that I myself have struggled with, and I've had friends that have struggled with that. And I realized that I need to kind of have a bigger impact and move not just from helping plus size brides, but helping plus size women in general. Just realize that regardless of your weight, regardless of your size, you are worthy of feeling loved and happy and joyful and beautiful. So that's where I am. That's what I do.
Yeah. And I know we were just talking about this like self-love challenge that you're in the middle of. And I think that regardless, like you said, regardless of what your weight is, or regardless of what you think about your beauty or whatever, like this self-love is such an important piece. And it's such an important, I feel like, area that we often neglect, and like the value of how much we love ourselves. And I feel like it's been like growing up, there's this element of like being humble and being proud of what you have, or proud of who you are, or proud of what you look like, at the same time as this like shame element. So
Mhm.
how do you feel like you like that has been for you, like understanding, like how do you fall in love with your body without feeling like you're being prideful, or does that make sense?
No, totally. Because I know for me, I get it all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, you're so confident. You're so, you're one of those ones that just can do whatever. And I'm like, it was for so long that was surface. That was
Mm-hmm.
like a surface confidence. That was a surface love for myself. It wasn't deep down, because it is. We do all struggle with knowing, like, if I get to the point of loving myself and loving where I am, does that make me where I'm being arrogant or where I'm being prideful, and then I'm going to put someone else down? And it's not like that at all. The way that I like to think of it is, if I am comfortable with myself and I love myself, I show up differently, which then can affect other people. It affects my husband. It affects my kids. It affects my relationship with other people. So it's not about being arrogant or prideful. It's about one of those ones like, I'm helping the world by showing up as my better self, the self where I love myself in all parts of myself. And that helps other people feel better about themselves when they see me feeling good about myself. So no, but it is hard. And I think that we as women, specifically moms, we deal with that a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't want to be that outward person, because then I might be hurting someone else. But really, you are helping all the people around you by feeling that way about yourself.
Yeah. So when you stand in front of the mirror each morning, or somebody that's listening stands in front of that mirror and their head starts spinning with all of those like negative comments or like shameful things, or even, you go to put your shirt on and you feel like you don't look good in it, or you change 50 million times, or especially people that are postpartum that have had like a rapid change in their body too, can definitely navigate through this kind of unfeeling great in their body. How do you handle that when you stand in front of the mirror each day? And I think I've heard you say some things in this regard in the past, but what do you do when you're standing there and you feel like there's nothing that you find that you can love about your body?
I think it's so funny, because specifically when you said postpartum, because my youngest is 18 months. And it's like, for me, I had vaginal births, vaginal births for my other two. So this was my first C-section. And it does stuff to your body that I didn't realize. And it's like my stomach, it does not look the same as it looked when I had my other two.
Mm-hmm.
So when you said that, it really hit home, because it has been mornings where I've gotten up and I've looked in the mirror and I'm like, dude, my stomach does not look the same. Like, it doesn't have the same shape. And it's like, and when you said the negative thoughts, like, I call them your inner mean girl. Like, she can be loud and proud and make you only hear her. And for me, what I have done and what I teach a lot of my clients to do is she will never go away. We cannot make that inner mean girl go away, but we can quiet her. We can make her get quiet, and we can do the things that we need to not to listen to her.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's about, and what I teach my clients, it's about, okay, those body parts that you're looking at, because we all have those specific parts, whether it's your double chin, whether it's your flabby arms, the squishy stomach, your thunder thighs, we all have those parts of us that we look at and we don't feel good about. But what I always say is, what has that body part done for you? How can I love that body part and not hate that body part? And we cannot hate something that we love that has helped us. So when I look at my stomach and I'm like, ooh, it's a little bit more jiggling going on. It's a little bit more layers to it right now. I think that stomach carried my Julian.
Yeah.
That stomach was what helped me. Then when I look at my thighs, oh my gosh, those thighs are what allow me to get up and walk and play with my kids. You know, those arms are what allow me to get up and every day inspire women to do what I'm doing. So I really work on transforming how you see your body parts and not necessarily hate them, but learn to love them because of what that body part has done for you. And it's hard and it takes work, but once you can do that, then you start quieting that inner mean girl. Because we have her, I'm telling you, and she can be so loud, but you just have to learn how to quiet her.
Well, yeah. And it's not just your own inner mean girl, it's the world's mean girls and boys out there
Yes,
too, right?
yes,
So
true. Yeah.
you've got this barrage of society telling you one thing or another. And this is totally random. And
I love random.
I don't know if this is the greatest place to put this, but I actually was sitting there thinking about like men and women and this like attraction. And it came up because we were watching my husband play basketball, and my daughter, my oldest, was like, "Oh my gosh, boys are so inappropriate. They just take their shirt off no matter like where they're at, you know?" And so my mind started down this spiral of, okay, so where in our world did it become that breasts became like this attraction to men, like inherently, innately, like hormonally? Is that an attraction, or is that a learned part of our society? Right. And so I was in my head thinking back to maybe other cultures or different places where maybe there isn't this stigma of, you know, breasts for women shouldn't be shown, but men's breasts are totally fine. And this like attraction, like what part of our body is available. Like I know, and like indigenous tribes and things years ago, they probably ran around naked all of the
Oh
time.
yeah, most definitely. There's still tribes in Africa to do this. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
where in this like element did we add this other layer of like attraction based on our bodies, you know? And so I know this is like a totally random thought process that came, but this concept of that society is telling us one thing about our body and what our body is for and what part of our body is allowed to be showed and what part of our body is attractive or not, or all of that. But then you have that on top of what your own thoughts are. So how do you navigate that? Like separate out those two and figure out what are actual truths about your body. And I know you talked a little bit about that, talking about, you know, you can't love and hate the same thing, and giving yourself some truths about that the
Oh
ways
yeah.
that you actually, that body part has done really well for you. So how do you navigate when you're on this track and you're wanting to go down this track, but then society is telling you one thing too?
And I think the thing is society is going to always be there. For us to say that we're going to completely and utterly eradicate the way that society sees people's body is crazy, because it's always going to be there. But the way that you can combat it is, if you are strong in the love for yourself, if you are strong in how you feel about yourself, and I always think about, like, the rocks are just going to pop off of you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what someone else thinks about you. It doesn't matter what you're seeing out there, because I'm strong in my faith. I'm strong in the way I feel about myself. And so that's why when I tell people, when you're struggling with all of these external things, you have to look inward, because those external things you have no control over. Yeah. You have no control. You have no responsibility. You cannot control anything going on in the outside world, in those external factors. I can control myself. I can control how I react to what someone else says to me. I can control how I feel when someone else says something to me. That's what you have to work on. So when you kind of work on yourself and how you feel about yourself, everything else becomes erroneous. You just don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about it anymore. And it's one of those things people don't realize. They're like, but. I'm like, no, I promise you. Like when you feel a certain way about yourself and you have that confidence and you have that swagger and you have that feel about you, girl, anybody can say anything. I'm good. I'm good. Go ahead. So it is. And it really is that simple.
Yeah. Well, and I think you just totally hit it too, that the outside stuff, like the confidence you have in your different body parts, doesn't mean as much as that internal confidence and that inner peace and that love that you have for yourself as a human being, and not just your love as your body. Like your body and your human being are not separated out. So talk a little bit more about that. Like how do you do that inner love work on yourself and gain that confidence and swagger outside of what your physical body actually looks like, whether you're large or small or anywhere in between?
I think the way that I look at it is there's several different ways that you can do it. And I like to call them like several different layers. And the first is really what you think about yourself. Okay, that then includes, all right, when I'm looking at social, what am I thinking? What am I doing when I'm thinking about myself?
Mhm.
What are all the things that are affecting how I think about myself? That's what you attack first. You have to attack how you feel about your, because this is what I tell people all the time. Oh, I don't necessarily want to do this because I feel that this person is going to feel a certain way. Oh, I don't want to do this because I think, really? They are not thinking anything about that. Like they really aren't thinking that deeply about it. It's how you feel about yourself that's causing you to think that they think that. Like
Mhm.
literally, it really is. And one example was I was working with a client and she came to me and she's like, Shafonne, she's like, okay, and she was a mom. She was like, I'm a mom, but I really feel like I am not in the same place that I used to be with my partner. I was like, all right, great. Let's talk about it. She was like, well, I feel like that they are going to say this about me when they, when we're trying to be intimate, or they're going to feel this way, when we're out. And everything was about the other person. Everything.
Their thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything. And I was like, okay, let's break this down for you, sweetheart. Number one, when you're trying to be intimate, they're trying to be intimate with you. They do not care. Like I'm telling you, they are not thinking those thoughts. They are trying to get it in and do what they need to do at that moment. Let's be honest. Like for real. When you're out with this person and you all are out to dinner or out wherever, they are not thinking that. They're just trying to enjoy the time with you. And everything I was like, okay, let's think about this. And she was like, oh my goodness. She was like, it is really about each of the times that we went through that she was describing it. She was thinking that it was about them. She was like, oh my gosh, it's me. She was
Mhm.
like, it's how I feel about how I'm going to show up in that intimate situation. It's about how I feel that I'm going to look doing whatever activity they were doing. It's about how I feel. And I was like, yeah, like it's about you. So
Yeah.
we have to attack that first, because once you can change how you feel about yourself, then you start seeing all of these extra things show up in your life. You're able to go out and show up with your kids a different way. You're able to go out and show up with your partner a different way. You're able to go out and in your job after that promotion or start that business or do these things. And people had no idea that it all literally started with themselves.
Yeah. Well, and that was going to be my next question, was like, what are these ripple effects? Because so often we think that, oh, just self-love is only for us, but it's not. It's in the way we show up in all areas of our life. So what are some of the ripple effects you've seen with your clients
Mhm.
when you've started to show up and fully love yourself authentically and fully and completely? How does that change? Like you've already hit on like the intimacy, but how does it
Mhm.
change other areas of life?
Well, I know, and I can speak for me and some of the clients that I've had, but I know specifically for me, I have had my wedding business for 10 years and I was not showing up. I was not moving it forward. So to have something for 10 years and for me to think back, like, oh my gosh, I've had this for 10 years and I've always been like, it's not where I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because I did not feel like I deserved for it to be there. I did not feel like that I was able to show up in it like I need to because of how I felt about myself, because of the thoughts that I told myself. So once I was able to realize, like, okay, Shafonne, you need to look at yourself and how you feel about yourself, it's been able to skyrocket because I now can show up on video. I now am speaking literally all over the world when I would have never done that before.
Yeah.
For my kids, like even my kids, my daughter told me, and my daughter is 14. So I am obviously not the coolest one right now. Let's just be honest.
They're our greatest teachers.
Yes, they are. And she teaches me a lot. She really does. But she told me, she was like, Mommy, I just want to let you know. She was like, the way that you are right now is so different than what you were. And I'm telling you, it's making me feel better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
First off, I was like, oh my gosh, she actually talked to me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And not through text.
Well, and what amazing thing that you can teach to your kids, not by doing any, like you're not actively teaching them, you're just modeling. And
Yes.
that's the greatest way that we can teach our kids. And the things, like, I know my oldest is very much like me, and I can see some of the struggles that she has. And there's random times I'll overhear her mimicking something that I might say, or doing something that I might say, or whatever. And even just recently, she was cutting a box. I think I might have shared the story. She was like cutting a box, and I told her, I was like, honey, be careful, you're going to cut your hand. And next thing you know, she cuts her hand. And she's like, Mom, you always say that what you say comes true. And because you said it, this is all your fault, you know? And so she's like, it's because you said it. It's because you said it. What you say comes true.
Oh,
But it's amazing that, like, she put together, when I told her that, you know, a few times, like, what you say becomes your reality. The way you're talking to yourself, the way you think out loud, the things you say, it really does become your reality. And so she caught that. And so it's amazing when you see. So you can keep going on your story, but I think it's beautiful to like hear you talking about that. It's the way you're modeling and not necessarily what you're saying to
I
her.
mean, and
It's
it's
making a
and
difference.
especially that group, that age group, because they're not necessarily always going to be listening to it. And I'm
Yeah.
specifically speaking about that age group because they're always like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
but they will look at you and they will follow what you're doing. And I
Mhm.
think for my daughter, of being that age and being, I mean, just that age is hard. I'm just gonna put it out there. That age is hard. And for me to have her say that, and I didn't have that conversation with her, she's just seeing what I'm doing is huge. Um, and I think as a mom, it even made me feel even better because
Mhm.
sometimes when we're constantly like, do this, do this, do this, it's just that they don't get it like that. And so it
Yeah.
made my heart so warm. Um, and I think the other part about it is that really relaying to people that you are what you think. And it's like I tell people all the time, and even from that conversation, I was like, what you think about yourself is how you will show up in the world. Like it
Yeah.
literally is. If you have those negative thoughts, that's how you'll show up. If you have that positivity and those positive thoughts, that's how you're going to show up. So the next part I would say of that ripple effect is how you're showing up for other people, not just your family, not just your partner, but your other relationships in your life, your friends, your coworkers, your family. So when you start feeling a different way about yourself, when you start feeling like I'm enough, I am worthy, I am deserving, I do love myself, that's how you're going to show up in the world. And I've had so many of my friends, they're like, okay, I just need whatever you have right now, because whatever you have, I need it. And people are starting to see it because I'm showing up differently in the world.
Yeah.
And that's all about how I think about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that that necessarily means you have to show up big. It just means you show up real and you show
Mhm.
up authentically. And I think that's where sometimes people get this misconception of, like, like you said, like showing up like really confidently doesn't mean that it has to be large
No.
or big or boastful or whatever else. Like, just showing up authentically can be quiet if you're an introvert and that's what you want to do, or it can be subtle or whatever, but it's just like this air that you carry, that the way you speak and the way you are just, I don't know, there is something
Well, and I
that
think the other
shifts.
part I just had when I just did my day 4 and my challenge. And what we talked about is how you show up, like what you expect of others, how you want others to treat you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that's
For
so
sure.
important because when I feel a certain way and I feel love for myself, I'm going to demand that from other people.
Yeah.
I'm going to demand that other people treat me that way. And I
Yeah.
think that was another part of it that my daughter referenced because she was like, once again, that age is hard because they're dealing with a lot of stuff that they're trying to work their way through. And for her to hear and see me doing things that is ultimately how people react to me and treat me, that's the part of it that was key too. Because for her to say, I realize now how I should have people treat me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to be in a relationship where someone doesn't, and that for her is not the opposite sex yet. We're still dealing with just girls. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, we haven't gotten to that realm yet. But she was like, even with my girlfriends, she was
Yeah.
like, it's like, it allows me to know, like, I'm not going to be treated a certain way. If you cannot treat me a certain way, then I don't need to be around you. And if you don't love yourself, you're not going to be aware of that. You're going to let people not treat you the way that they should.
Right, right. Well, and that was fun. It kind of brought up a conversation. My daughter was talking about not bullying, but kind of the cattiness of girls
Mm-hmm.
and stuff at school. And she was saying something, and I said, there's people that don't love me. Like there are people in my life that don't think I'm cool. They don't love who I am, like whatever. And that's okay because I'm not made for everybody. And so for her to see my reaction in that situation and be like, it's okay. Like some people aren't going to like you. Not everybody in the world is meant to like you. I think that makes a very big difference, especially in that age when they want all of their peers to like them,
Yeah, because
right?
they do. Like, and just the aspect that they don't is very disheartening. They don't understand that. So when you are confident in yourself and you love yourself, then you understand everyone's not going to like me. I'm not going to be liked by, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. That's
Yeah.
the key. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as you know, kind of thinking through like all of this, like we've shifted from it's not just about your body. Your body, I guess, maybe could be what you think about your body and how you look at your body size is just because it doesn't matter. Like I know you work with plus size women, but there's like anorexic stick figure women that feel
Yes.
the same way about their
Yes.
body as somebody else. It doesn't matter what the size looks like. I mean, on any end of the spectrum or in between or wherever you're at, this self-love is the key component, like the
Oh
key
yeah.
piece. And so anybody listening, regardless of what your weight is or where you're at or what job you have or if you have kids or lots of kids or none or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's this self-love piece, I think, is
Yes.
what we're kind of coming back to, is that love that you have for yourself radiates from the inward outward, and that it doesn't matter anything around you, like what your circumstances, like your house, your body, your any of those external things don't matter. It's all about you and your that inner peace and how you show up for yourself first,
Yes.
and that how you show up for yourself first then has this ripple effect and radiating out towards everything else and shifts. I know you and I are both in kind of the same circles, and like how the way you believe shapes the way you take action. And like you said,
Oh,
the
I
way
love that.
the way
Yeah.
that you take action like has this ramification on like how you let other people treat you. And like I know when a while ago I was like this victim mentality, you take on and you become this martyr. And I think that's a lot of times what moms do, is they are martyr for everybody else around them, feeling
Mhm.
like their desires, their needs, none of that matters. And sometimes that's because when you have a brand new baby, what do? You have this like helpless little thing that can't take care of it for
Yes.
yourself. And so you kind of become conditioned to giving everything of yourself for this baby. And that somewhere down the road, you realize that you've given so much of yourself that there's not much there. And so you have to refine that and bring that back and find like, what is it about you? Like why you don't have to completely lay yourself down on the line, that you matter, and that taking care of you shapes how you show up for your kids, and it shapes how you show up for everybody else around you. And I feel like I've kind of gone on a little tangent here.
No, but it actually like came full circle. Like it really did.
Yeah.
Because we as women, erroneous of plus size, whatever size, we as women, and then the next level as we as moms, like we are all about give, give, give. Hand in the air right here. I know. Like I am go, 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 give, do, do, do. And then I sit back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am struggling right now.
Yeah.
I am really not in a good place right now. And I realized because I've literally poured everything out of my cup, there's nothing left for me. And then that starts affecting how I am with other people. Like, because my husband will tell me, he'll be like, I need you to go get yourself together. Because my kids, you know, they'll be like, honey, I think you might need to go watch some TV for a little bit. Like, go decompress. Because it is like when we're giving, which is what we do so often, then it starts affecting how we are with people. Yeah. Because when you're not pouring back into that cup, when you're not pouring back into your own cup, then that once again is how you are showing up for people. And it affects it, and not usually in a good way. Yeah. Like you're not your best person when you haven't been poured into, when you're not loving yourself. Yeah. So girl, no, you did a full circle. I was like, okay, good job.
Bring it all together. But I do think, like we talked about, like this foundational piece of aligning, and I know a big part of my program is kind of aligning with your core priorities and aligning with those things that matter the most to you. And I think that oftentimes that comes from your piece, this like piece of talking about self-love. I think that's even foundational to that, is like coming into this place of figuring it out. What is it that what is it about your life that makes you happy? Where do you want to be? What are those things that matter to you? And how can you love yourself? And I know I talk a lot about like setting boundaries in, you know, your calendar, your time or whatever, but that ultimately comes from this, like you said, wholeheartedly knowing you and being okay with you and being okay with the fact that it might upset somebody else, but that's okay because it's not a matter of them, it's a matter of you. And getting really true and aligned with that is the key foundational piece, I think.
No, I totally agree. And it's so fun. I keep like referencing this challenge, but it's so many things that you're saying. That's why I do this challenge, because it's so many parts of it. I had one day, we made a list. I want you to make a list of all the things that you say yes to. And I want you to make a list of all the things that you say no to. How does that list look? 9 times out of 10, it is not balanced. And you're saying yes to all these things over here that you do not necessarily want to say yes to. Yeah. And all the things that you're saying no to are actually all the things you want to be doing, but you're saying yes to all these things over here because you think you have to.
Yeah.
When you fall in love with yourself and you love yourself, I realize I don't have to say yes to everything. There are going to be some things I'm going to have to say no to so that I can say yes to things on this list that I'm not saying yes to. But you cannot get there if you do not love yourself and feel that you're deserving of saying no to these things and yes to the things that I actually want to be doing.
Yeah.
So yes, 100%, I totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. As we get close to the end, is there anything else that you need to share or you want to talk about?
I always like to kind of impart that last piece of wisdom. And I always tell people it is possible, because I think we as moms, especially, think that, okay, well, I'll do. But I just want to say it is possible for you to love yourself and get to a place where you are happy with yourself. And just remember that even if you think that it isn't, it is possible. You are deserving of it. You are worthy of feeling that way. And if you feel like you aren't, then definitely take steps to move in that direction.
Yeah. And if somebody listening wants to kind of move in that direction and wants to find you and get in touch with you, where can they do that?
I am at ShafonneMyers.com, and I always spell it because people are just like, huh? Um, it's S as in Sam, HAF as in Frank, O, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy E, Myers, MYERS.com. Instagram at Shafonne Myers. Facebook, you can find me there too. And if you're interested in bridal stuff, it's Pretty Pair Bride. But yeah, I'm all over.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Siobhan, for coming on. I know we kind of had this like roundabout circle about talking about body image and then moving to self love, but I think that self love piece is like the core
Mhm.
foundational thing
Yes.
for everything that we do. So, thank you so much for
Of
sharing that.
course. Well, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this episode and had some major aha or something that you're walking away with, I know that Chiffon and I both would love to hear it. So you can find us on Instagram or wherever and send us a little DM and let us know what you're walking away with from this episode. So sounds good.
Bye.
All
See y'all
right.
later.
Bye.